Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mohammed G. Halata, and this is our group. Me and Bakhodir and Adwani Abdullah will be doing a project on a 1MDB scandal. The introduction. The 1MD scandal is one of the biggest scandals in Malaysia's history.
The first one
involved even the Prime
2009.
Minister of
The second
Malaysia,
phase happened in
costing
2012
Malaysia
and
a whopping
2013.
$6.3 billion
The first
worth
phase
to be laundered into Malaysia's active
where a substantial portion of the money was sent to a Swiss bank account that was
1MD
controlled by
scandal is
Joe
one of
Law.
the biggest scandals in
And the
Malaysia's
second phase
history
happened in
that involved even the Prime Minister of Malaysia,
through the help of an investment
Malaysia
bank
a whopping $6.3 billion
that helped
worth
raise
to be
over
laundered into
$6.5
Malaysia's
billion
active in this case.
in bonds and have a massive fees.
The introduction.
Most of the money went
1MD
sent
scandal
to
is one
a
of the biggest
company
scandals in Malaysia's
that
history.
had an identical name to a legitimate company with
Malaysia a whopping $6.3 billion worth to be laundered
and
into
that
Malaysia's active in
was
this
the reason
case.
why a lot of the money was sent without
Introduction.
what's it
1MD
called?
scandal is one of the
Inclusion
biggest
of
scandals in
people,
Malaysia's history.
or
That
people
involved
ignoring
even
these
the
red
Prime
flags
Minister of
because it was
Malaysia, costing
it was
Malaysia a
it was
whopping
going to a
$6.3 billion
legitimate company.
worth to be
That's
laundered
how
into
the
Malaysia's
money
active in
disappeared.
this case.
This
The introduction.
was a
1MD
biggest scandal in
scandal
Malaysia's
is one of the
history.
biggest
So
scandals in
thank you.
Malaysia's history that involved. What is 1MDB? 1MDB is one Malaysia department Berhad, a company that was developed for economical development in 2009 by the then Prime Minister of Malaysia, Najib Razak. Being an economical development company for the country of Malaysia, its goal was to get investors and traders into help monetarily for things in Malaysia. But what it succeeded in doing was a money laundering scheme that costed Malaysia $6.3 billion worth into fraudulent accounts. How the money disappeared, the disappearance of the billions worth of cash happened through a multiple scheme that combined the fraudulent investment in shell companies and complicit international financial institutions. Misappropriation did not follow a single method, but it evolved through several sophisticated channels that involved many key figures like our Prime Minister, then Prime Minister, and another key factor. There are two phases that the money went through. Phase one happened in 2009. That was when a huge portion of the money, about $1 billion, was transferred into a Swiss bank account that was controlled by one of the key figures named Joe Law. And a second phase happened in 2012 and 2013 with the help through investment banks that helped raise over $6.5 billion with huge fees, about $600 million. And most of the money was sent to a mirror company that sent about $3.5 billion into a company that had an almost identical name to a wealth company that was legitimate. So that money was sent through to a different company, and that naming helped it to go through unfazed because people thought it was into a legitimate company. And thank you.
Moving on, we have a role of key personalities. Let's list all of them. First of all, we have Joe Law, alleged architect, and he was one of the main figures in the scandal and controlled all of the processes as a head. Then we have Najib Razak, who was one of the former Malaysian prime ministers. Then we have small figures like lawyers and intermediaries, and then banks and even actors were also involved in this scandal. So now what can be said about Joe Law, alleged architect? There is a lot of discussions about this character in particular, and although he was not even an official employee of 1MDB, prosecutors say that he was main figure behind all of the processes, and he was the person who controlled the flow of all the funds that were stolen, and made a labyrinth of fake accounts in different countries such as Singapore, Switzerland, and the Caribbean, and he controlled his flow of funds also through the maze of shell companies. And all of the funds that he obtained from this scandal he used on all of his desires, which include private jets, huge yachts, and he even contributed some of his funds to the production of the movie Wolf of the Wall Street. And currently he is still free, and from what I heard, now he is functioning in West Bank and still doing a lot of dirty processes in the current day and age. Now let's look at our next character, whose name is Najib Razak, and he was one of the former Malaysian prime ministers. He is most prominent figure convicted in relation to this scandal, and the prosecutors proved that over 42 million ringgit ended up in his bank account. But Najib declined that proof provided by prosecutors and said that it was an accusation, and according to himself, those were the funds from a political donation from the Saudi royal family. His response didn't make it through the court's decision of disapproving his defense. Due to his position, he could avoid being questioned frequently, which is why the conviction is still under appeal, and he's roaming around free as well, just like our previous figure, Joe Law. What can be said about the lawyers and intermediaries? Basically enablers. All of the processes that happened between lawyers and all of that. So basically all they did is work as a lawyer for these primary figures so that they don't get caught. Okay, now the system facilitators, or banks and international actors. And we already know that a lot of international actors were involved in this scandal as well. And as covered in a former slide, a vast number of banks let the case unfold. Banks, lawyers, so all of them, they didn't stand up against this corrupted movement. The most famous one is Goldman Sachs. They helped 1MDB borrow $6.5 billion and charged them an outrageous fee of over $6 million. Banks' actual functions were paused due to their greed and participation in this case, which allowed the theft to work on a global scale. United States took the lead. The Department of Justice launched its biggest ever case to seize stolen assets, tracking over $1 billion spent on luxury apartments, art, and even a private jet. They used laws to reclaim these items bought with dirty money. Other countries joined in as well, like Switzerland and Singapore. So this case is still ongoing, and a lot of the resources that were stolen and all of the funds are still being returned. And here are some of the numbers from the funds that were returned already, but there is still a lot more coming in the future. The recovery is still ongoing. In 2024, a London court ordered Joe Law's sister to pay back $107 million because the sister of Joe Law couldn't explain where all of that money and all the funds came from. That's why they were paid back to during this court session. And so far, Malaysia recovered over $6.3 billion from settlements and selling seized assets such as super yachts that I was talking about recently.
So I will be discussing about the legal processes of the 1MDB scam or 1MDB scandal. So 1MDB scandal triggered one of the Malaysia's largest anti-corruption efforts. The war against corruption. Authorities launched criminal trials, a lot of recoveries, and more institutional reforms. The most important case involved the former Prime Minister named Najib Razak, who was charged and he was also sentenced to the prison and also was made to pay heavy fines. This shows nobody is and was above the law. Moving on to the asset recovery and international action, Malaysia pursued recoveries of billions of ringgit, stolen from the 1MDB. Funds were also traced through offshore accounts and shell companies. Even though asset recovery remains very difficult due to complex international laws, several countries have conducted internal investigations, which includes the United States of America, Switzerland, Singapore, and also a lot of luxurious assets has been returned back to Malaysia. So the next is the controversies that surrounds the 1MDB. The scandal exposed a lot of failures in oversight institutions, which includes the auditors, the regulators, and the enforcement agencies that were involved. They really, failed to act very early, even despite the early signs that they got. Professionals linked 1MDB, including the lawyers and the bankers, they were accused of misconduct and poor due diligence. Also, political interference was also alleged, largely. So the political fallout and the impact on the public. So the public, which the citizens, they got very angry over the corruption and it changed Malaysia's political landscape. The scandal contributed to wide historic change of government. Also, confidence in the political leadership and public institutions declined significantly, and continuing, citizens also demanded stronger anti-corruption laws and regulations and independent institutions. Also, the international confidence was damaged, but subsequently improved over the years. In conclusion, the 1MDB scandal illustrates the complex challenges involved in addressing large-scale corruption within a modern state. Although legal proceedings and assets recovery remains ongoing, the 1MDB scam has already reshaped Malaysia's legal and political landscape for years to come. So this is all we have to say on the 1MDB scandal. Thank you for having us.